My name is Kane Badmus, and this is my story. I met my best friend Kane Abel about 40 years ago when we were both in the first grade. I was from a poor home. My parents were both struggling to make ends meet. While my mom was a maid to an affluent family, my dad was a clerk at a multinational company. Though resources were scarce, one thing my parents did not spare any expense on was my education. I went to the same school as children of the elites. My father would always say to me that since he didn't have riches for me to inherit, he would ensure that I had the best education to improve my chances of having a better life than he did. Toyosi, on the other hand, was born with a silver spoon. He had never known lack or adversity. He was chauffeur-driven to and from school, had the most expensive clothes, shoes, and backpacks I had ever seen. I constantly imagined what his home would look like and the kinds of toys he played with. While I went to an expensive school, my family of 3 lived in a studio apartment. Mom and I slept on the bed while my dad slept on the couch or on the floor. My dad had always warned me to steer clear of the rich kids in order to ensure that their manners or lack thereof did not rub off on me. I was a child who respected his parents, so I always did what I was told. One day, just as I was about to embark on my long walk home, I witnessed Toyosi being bullied by some other kids. One of them had taken his glasses, while the others took turns poking or punching him. He was completely helpless and couldn't see. "Get away from him!" I yelled at the top of my voice while I tried to shield him as much as I could and fended off his attackers. I looked around and located his broken but still functional spectacles. "Thanks for your help. My name is Toyosi," he said in a shaky voice. "You're welcome. My name is Kane." I responded. I waited by his side until he was picked up by his mom and her driver. He explained what had happened to his mom, and she was grateful for how I had helped her son. She insisted she would drop me off at home. I was a little embarrassed when they drove to my neighborhood and eventually my house. If they had any reservations about my living conditions, they hid it well. Mrs. Abel gave me a long and warm embrace and thanked me again for coming to the aid of her son. That was the beginning of my friendship with Toyosi. Toyosi and I hung around together and did almost everything together. My dad was skeptical for a long time and warned me to be careful because all rich people were users with a hidden agenda, and their kids were no different. With time, my dad softened up and accepted my friendship with Toyosi as genuine. By the time we were in high school, we were basically brothers. We were seatmates in class, ate together, studied together, and did almost everything together. His parents had also taken over my education and ensured that I had equal access to the educational resources afforded to their son. Life was good. I was blessed. Toyosi and I were accepted into the same university. Toyosi's major was political science and economics, while mine was computer science. We lived together in the same dorm room. The first year in university was uneventful. By second year, Toyosi met and fell in love with Kemi, who was my classmate and study buddy. Her father was a big-shot politician who operated in the same circles as Toyosi's parents. This was a match made in heaven. Hangouts were no longer with just Toyosi, but Kemi as well. As we continued to hang out together, I noticed that Kemi was more and more uncomfortable with having me in their space. My assumption was that Toyosi had revealed everything about me and my upbringing to Kemi, including the fact that his family was solely responsible for my education, and that had made her start to act like I was unworthy of them and whatever they had going on. Toyosi was unfazed. As far as he was concerned, I was his bro for life. All this seemed to fuel Kemi's attitude even more. I, on the other hand, started to respect and understand that, as a couple, they needed time alone together. At the start of final year in school, Toyosi and Kemi got engaged. Now that Kemi had a ring on her finger, she mustered the courage to have a one-on-one talk with me, where she pretty much told me how uncomfortable she was with the relationship between me and her husband. She called me a user who was taking advantage of her future husband and his family's kindness and philanthropy. She advised me to cut off my relationship with Toyosi, and if I didn't, she would find a way to. "Is that a threat?" I asked in shock. "Oh no," she responded. "Trust and believe that this is a guarantee." I debated for a while in my head and heart if I should let Toyosi know the extent of how bad things were with Kemi and me. In the end, I let it go. Toyosi and I continued our friendship. With time, Kemi seemed to warm up to me, or so I thought. The night after our final papers, while preparing for bed, I heard a knock on the door of the dorm room I shared with Toyosi. I opened the door and came face to face with Kemi. "Hi, Kemi. Toyosi is not here," I started. "I know. I came to see you," she responded. She said she wanted to officially apologize for everything. She had a bottle, which she offered as a peace offering. I accepted the gift, and she encouraged me to open it and share it with her in order to seal the apology. I was ready to go to bed, but I reluctantly agreed. I got 2 glasses and popped open the bottle. "Only a little, though," I pleaded. "I have an early night. Everything that happened next is a blur. I became groggy after 1 glass of wine. I found myself slipping in and out of consciousness." "Kemi, what did you do?" I struggled to mouth the words. "What I should have done a long time ago. I don't make empty threats." I watched Kemi rip up her dress, rough up her hair, and smear lipstick on her face. Next, she called Toyosi, hysterically asking him to come to his dorm room immediately. I remember pleading with her to stop whatever she was doing. A couple of minutes later, Toyosi barged into the room. As soon as Kemi saw him, she flew into his arms and broke down, crying. Toyosi turned to me. "Kane, what have you done?" he asked, with tears in his eyes. At this point, I felt so sick and intoxicated that all I could mutter was his name, Toyosi. He started to rain blow after blow on my body. I was completely helpless. "I trusted you with my life. You were my brother." Kemi had drugged me and staged the scene of a near rape. There was no coming out of this one. I woke up the next morning with a terrible headache. Slowly, the events of the night before filtered through my hippocampus. I got up and looked around me. Toyosi had moved all his things out. We were done with our finals, but this wasn't the plan. I tried to call him to no avail. I went to his family home, but he had left specific instructions not to let me in. Everyone in our friend circle abandoned me like a plague. I continued trying to reach out to Toyosi for over a year, until I gave up trying. The years moved on gradually. Toyosi and Kemi had a big society wedding. He went on to become a prominent political figure in the state. I lived my life uneventfully, got married, created a tech startup, and worked very hard to become successful. By the 14th year of my company, I started to have some financial troubles. Profits were dropping and bankruptcy was looming ahead. To make matters worse, I had lost my beautiful wife of 15 years, Rachel, to septicemia. I had accepted that I had lost everything, and I filed bankruptcy forms. The following week, I got a call from my lawyer. My company had been miraculously saved. An anonymous investor had provided more than enough funds to revive my company. I had no clue who this investor was, but I blessed this individual with all my heart. For the next few years, I put all my blood, sweat, and soul to my work, and I cared little about romance. One day, on my way to work, while driving by the local university, I splashed some mud on a student. I quickly pulled over to apologize and offer whatever help that I could. "Oh my gosh, I have a presentation in 2 hours. My outfit is completely ruined. What am I going to do?" cried the student in utter disbelief. "I am so sorry. I live close by. I could drive you to my home and clean your outfit. It would take no more than 30 minutes, I promise," I pleaded. She accepted, albeit reluctantly. I drove her as fast as I could to my house and cleaned her outfit. She began to relax once she had her outfit fixed. She apologized for being so upset earlier and explained that she was really nervous about her presentation. By this time, I had learned that her name was Rachel, and she was a 21-year-old student of computer science. It was such a coincidence that she was studying a course that I had majored in. I helped her with her presentation that day, and she aced it. Soon, our friendship blossomed into a romance. One thing bothered me, though. The age difference was huge. I was 47 while she was 21. I loved her with all my heart, but I was scared about what her family and the society would think. Eventually, we decided we couldn't keep our relationship to ourselves. I wanted to marry Rachel. She had opened up to her family that I was more than twice her age, and they had come to terms with the situation and wanted to meet me. I was invited to Rachel's family home to meet her parents. It was a sprawling mansion with a beautiful interior. I had no idea that her parents were affluent. "Wow, Rachel," I said to her. "Your home is beautiful." "Thanks," she responded shyly. I heard Rachel's parents' footsteps. They were descending down the steps while talking in soft tones. We came face to face. I was shocked. They were no other than Toyosi and Kemi. "What is going on here?" Toyosi asked in shock. "Dad, this is Kane. Explained Rachel, before being cut off by Toyosi. "Over my dead body," said Toyosi coldly. "The only way this marriage is going to happen is over my dead body." Kemi, on the other hand, said nothing. She had a look of remorse and shame on her face. I gave Rachel a kiss on the cheek, turned around, and walked out of the house. Rachel ran out after me. She wanted to understand what was going on. The only response I gave to her before walking away was for her to ask her mom. A few days later, Rachel came to my house with tears in her eyes. "My mom told me everything," she said. "She refuses to admit it all to my dad. Since my dad refuses to give his blessings, I am ready to elope." We eventually eloped after trying to no avail to persuade Toyosi to change his mind. Toyosi cut all ties with Rachel. Rachel and I got married and had 2 kids in quick succession. We lived a good life and lacked for nothing. One evening, a few years later, we received a call from a strange number. It was Toyosi. He sounded different, almost like his old self. He needed to see us urgently. He said he would also understand if we refused to see him. Rachel was adamant about not going. I managed to convince her. "In the end, all that matters is peace," I said to her. We made it to her family house a few days later. Toyosi received us at the door. He was welcoming, strange. His beard was also unkempt. "Thanks for coming," he said. Toyosi turned to me and, to my greatest surprise, fell down on both knees and cried profusely. "I have treated you unfairly. Can you ever forgive me?" he asked. I pulled him up and gave him a tight hug. "You never stopped being my brother," I said. All 3 of us hugged tightly again. "Where's Mom?" Rachel asked. "She's upstairs. She wants to see you both," Toyosi responded. Rachel and I were puzzled but followed Toyosi upstairs. Kemi was in one of the bedrooms. She was terminally ill with giant cell myocarditis and had only days to live. Kemi motioned to me to come sit by her bedside. "I am so sorry, Kane," she whispered. "Please find it in your heart to forgive me," she pleaded. I forgave Kemi with all my heart. I held her hands tightly and wished we had had a better relationship. Kemi said she had been living in remorse for so many years. She had been following up on my progress and had helped my company financially by being the anonymous investor. Tears flowed freely that day. We all made peace. After Kemi's passing, Toyosi and I rebuilt our friendship. He was excited to be a grandpa and was very much a part of our lives. Everything came full circle. Life has been great ever since.